Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get started on the last session before the closing address. And this is an opportunity for a distinguished panel to really just encapsulate in a few very short minutes each some of the ideas that have come out during the course of the debate, and particularly focusing on the issue of organised crime as a national security threat. What that means for government is what's the nature of the national security threat, what it means for government, what it means for an agency, and is this the only or best way for looking at organised crime? To say we have a very distinguished panel. Three of the speakers require no introduction because we've had presentations from them already, but the fourth member of the panel that I'd particularly like to welcome is Dr. Margot McCarthy, who's the Deputy National Security Advisor in the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. Margot's got a distinguished career largely in defence and in fact previously in Prime Minister and Cabinet. She was Deputy Secretary of Defence before coming to this position earlier this year, and supports the National Security Advisor in a range of coordination and policy responsibilities, particularly implementing all of the things that have fallen out of the National Security Strategy of December 2008. So particular welcome to you, Margot, and to all of our distinguished panellists. So the way we're going to run this is each panellist will speak one after the other for about 5 minutes or so. Gary Lewis will just articulate a couple of the things that he said in his major address yesterday, and put an extra spin on the dimensions of national security. Margot will talk about what this concept of organised crime as a national security threat means from a government point of view and what government is doing in response to it. I've asked John Lawler, from the point of view of the CEO of the ACC, to talk about the implications of this change in the way that we see organised crime and placing it in the national security realm, what that means for an agency, a law enforcement agency. And then Professor Rod Broadhurst from ANU will talk a little bit about some of the other ways or some of the other implications of observing or thinking of national security and organised crime as similar or parts of the same concept. So due to the limited time, we'll kick off with Gary, and then we'll just go one after the other, and then we'll have as much time as we can for question time before the closing address. So I'd invite now Gary Lewis from the UNODC to address us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and let me say how much of a pleasure it is to be part of a distinguished panel like this. I've got 5 minutes, and therefore I would like to kick off. I've got 2 slides to show you, and the first slide is essentially the question that we are here to try to address. I thought about this for a long time coming down on the plane, and we've heard a lot about the issue of harm. We've heard about the harms that have been created or can be created for society. Things like challenges to the criminal justice system, the cost of law enforcement, the cost of crime itself, the economic, the brain drain, the capital flight, all sorts of externalities. And on the social side, individual harm, drug addiction, and the erosion of social capital through loss of trust in families. But I think the real key to this question is not so much there, because those things that we know. The real key is here. What does this phrase mean? What does national security mean? And from our point of view, I should actually say from my point of view, because it's my personal view, not reflecting the view of the organization. I think that if we consider national security in the old context of international relations, meaning state security, a very realpolitik approach, then situating organised crime and the response to it in that context would be inappropriate. However, if you consider national security in the context of what my colleague Andy Hughes referred to this morning, I wonder if everyone picked up on that, the concept of human security, which has become prominent in the last 15 years and especially in the last 5 years, then I think we can consider it part of national security, and I hope in the next slide to be able to demonstrate why. Human security focuses on people, not states. In fact, your former Foreign Minister Gareth Evans has been very prominent in the articulation of the concept of human security. And I would like to show now how I think it can work. This again is my conception of how it's looking. And I apologize to colleagues in the back who may not be able to read the small text. If we look at the type of threats that challenge modern leadership, we see a number of things that go well beyond the battalions and bullets and the concept related to military security. Again, you may not be able to read this, but crowded planet, meaning overpopulation, climate change, ocean destruction, all of these things are the challenges that modern leaders must face in an increasingly intertwined planet. What are the things, when applied to these problems, what are the things that can change the outcome and have either benign or malign consequences? I would say these are the things. Some of you will recognize some of them from what I was saying yesterday. Basically, understanding the extent of the problem, laws and norms, institutional capacity, regional responses, and leadership, advocacy. Playing around with those things can have various results. First result, which relates to human security, is these are the outcomes. Good governance, rule of law, choices, sustainable security, respect for human rights, trusted institutions, institutions that can deliver justice and can deliver security, as well as these types of things. On the other hand, if you get it wrong, this basically, that word is MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. You've heard a lot about that in recent weeks, given the Millennium Development Summit in New York. But getting it wrong means these types of outcomes: poor governance, reduced state capacity to manage social tension, institutions not trusted. Organized crime and transnational organized crime forms a symbiosis with politics. Poor services, health and security, failed cities, state as a predator on its citizens, a rogue on its citizens. The manifestations of this kind of mess are mixed up with these things: armed conflict, corruption, terrorism, organized crime, intertwined security crises, complex security situations of the sort that Andy was talking about this morning, and the dimensions of those are measured in the kind of work that some of us do on a daily basis: illicit drugs, human trafficking, all of these things, piracy, counterfeit pharmaceuticals. The problem is that if we do not fix them, if we manage to fix it, you get a virtuous cycle taking place here. If we don't, we get that type of thing, and states spiraling down and becoming ungoverned spaces on the planet. And therefore, my argument would be that in the context of human security, the issue of organized crime very much has to be considered part of our concern. Thank you very much.